This is From Justin to Kane, a podcast where Mike Robertson and Bob LaRue watch one critically acclaimed film and one terrible film and talk about how they are the same. Welcome, everybody, to From Justin to Kane. I'm Bob.
I'm Mike.
And this week, we've got a real doozy. Real cool movies. Hey, Mike?
Yeah.
I'd say both these films are spectacular for different reasons.
Oh, really? Go on.
They're both very unique. They're both, fantastical.
Mm-hmm.
And they both, no, one of them is bad. I can't think of things that are similar.
Yeah, I was
Anyways,
surprised
it
you were
doesn't matter.
saying this. I was like, Bob doesn't believe what he's saying.
No, I was lying because I'm a liar. What are the two movies, Mike?
So this week we watched the 2014 Wes Anderson movie, Grand Budapest Hotel.
Yeah.
And then also we watched a movie called If the Shoe Fits, directed by
Tom Clegg.
Tom Clegg, and it came out when, 1990?
1990. It's a TV movie.
Yeah. So, and it's a TV movie starring Rob Lowe.
Uh-huh.
And Jennifer Grey post Dirty Dancing.
Yes.
And I guess also it's important to say post Nose Job. Is that important to say?
Supposedly. I've been told that. But also, I was looking at photos and I'm like, I can't really tell a difference, to be honest with you.
Yeah, she looks good regardless of how honking her schnoz is, you know?
You know who else looks good is Rob Lowe. Man, that guy has not aged.
No, he has not aged, yeah.
He looks now as he looked then, and that is 20 years.
Yeah.
No, 30 years.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah, it's 2020. Ah, geez. Wow, time flies. Hey, Mike?
Truly it does.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I was looking at Jennifer Grey's career, and it's really short because Dirty Dancing came out in the late 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize that. I thought it was an older movie, but that was relatively recent. She did Red Dawn and then Dirty Dancing and then this movie. Like, it was kind of, her career has been very short. She still acts now. Like, she's in a lot of TV and she does a lot of supporting roles.
Yeah.
But, I'm just like, I was like, oh, dang, I thought she would have been, like, busy since the 70s or something. But no. Like, the late 80s is when she got her start.
Yeah, she was like a teenager or something right at when Dirty Dancing was being made, or she was just in her early 20s?
I have no idea how old she was.
I can't imagine she was very old when she was making Dirty Dancing.
No, I'd imagine Patrick Swayze was significantly older.
Yeah, although Dirty Dancing was only a couple of years off of, what's that movie? He was in The Outsiders.
Right. Did he play a kid in Outsiders?
He played a child, but I don't think he was a child.
Also, isn't Rob Lowe in Outsiders?
He is, yeah.
Yeah, wow. Comes full circle, people.
I wonder if Rob Lowe and Jennifer Grey talked about The Outsiders or talked about Patrick Swayze. They probably did.
You know what's a bummer is there's almost nothing on the internet about this film. But yeah, it would have been interesting to learn about the behind the scenes and like what their vibe was and like, did they shoot the shit and talk about the other movies? Did they both have hot goss? I wonder.
Yeah.
Or were they just like not even friends? They just, shot the shit and did their scenes and went home.
Did they both hot goss?
Yeah, well, on set, you got a lot of downtime, so you talk about hot goss.
Swayze goss.
Oh, that's Swayze goss, yeah. Well, so Jennifer Grey famously hates Patrick Swayze. Not hates, but they had a very antagonistic relationship. In Red Dawn, that's when they met. They did not hit it off. They had a very troubled shoot filled with much conflict. And then Dirty Dancing happened, and it was an excruciating shoot for the both of them. First of all, Patrick Swayze had some knee trouble and all that dancing. He is a trained dancer by trade. And so he did all that dancing himself, and a bunch of those moves. When you watch the film, you're like, wow, that's hard on the knees. And Jennifer Grey had never danced a day in her life, and she hated Patrick Swayze.
Wow.
Even articles to this day where she talks about the film, she uses very delicate diplomatic language. to basically not say anything negative, but she won't say anything positive either.
Interesting. I didn't know.
It is interesting.
I didn't know Dirty Dancing was so tumultuous.
This is also a sleeper hit because it was made by a cable company. Like, it wasn't a movie production company or anything. It was like very unorthodox production. And then it made a killing. Weird. Should this episode just be about Dirty Dancing instead, Mike?
I mean, it could be, yeah. It also,
a mini-sode?
I mean, it has a famously great soundtrack, one that I grew up listening to quite a bit because it was always on in the house.
Oh, really? Were your parents big Dirty Dancing fans?
I only remember watching it once as a child, but I remember listening to the soundtrack nonstop. That and Mermaids and the movie Now and Then and the Cocktail soundtrack. Like the 80s and early mid-90s had like a glut of, and Forrest Gump, I guess.
Interesting. A couple of those movies you peppered in I've never heard of, but...
You never heard of Cocktail?
I'll take your word for it. No, I haven't.
Tom Cruise plays a cocktail guy who like slings bottles. Who slings the bottles.
Oh, okay.
Oh, and then Cocktail also has Kokomo on it. Beach Boys song.
Oh, really? You love Beach Boys.
I do love the Beach Boys, but Mermaids has Cher and Winona Ryder in it.
What is it about?
I don't remember. I assume it's coming of age. Yeah, I don't remember, but Cher was in it, and she acts and does the soundtrack.
She's been in a few good movies.
Didn't she win an Oscar?
Mask? I don't know. Yeah, I feel like she was at least nominated.
Mm-hmm. But that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about the two films. The two films we're talking about. We're really tangenting the F out of this podcast already.
Yeah, that's okay. That's what the canines come for. Is not for the actual, structure of the show.
Yeah, isn't that the most fun part to listen to on podcasts when people just don't actually talk about what they're supposed to be talking about?
Not always.
Okay.
No. I like a lot of podcasts that I listen to, the preamble in the beginning, I skip.
Oh, yeah. Well, because you exclusively just listen to Mark Maron's podcast.
And he will just talk and talk and talk.
I love that when he talks about the cats that he finds.
He's a real weirdo.
And then they join his family. I love any cat content. I'm all about. They should call it WTC. Where are the cats? In the backyard. By the garage.
Yeah, that's a good idea, actually.
So let's talk about if the shoe fits, because you said you could not find any information on it. And so I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, so I went through 4 pages of Google.
Okay? Wow, 4.
And I found diddly squat, and things became less and less helpful. The majority of the Google results were for the film Cinderella, If the Shoe Fits, which is not the film we're doing.
And it came out the same year as Grand Budapest, I believe.
It did, yeah, 2014. So anywho, this film came out in 1990. It's made for TV. It was distributed by CBS and Fox Home Video, so neither of which are movie studios. Directed by Tom Clegg, who is a British man who directed a lot of TV, none of which I could recognize or have seen. He worked his whole life until he died, so... Or did he die? Oh, geez, I don't even know if he died.
Well, he's so unremarkable that you don't know if he's dead.
Yeah, I know that he had 2 spouses in his life. The wording suggested he was dead. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Anyways, his name is Tom Clegg. He never directed anything cool. There was no fall from grace for him with this project. It was just I'm pretty sure this was run of the mill with his other work. And so it's starring Jennifer Grey and Rob Lowe, both of which were big stars at the time, dare I say. And it's kind of shocking that they did this project. It makes you wonder, when they went into it, the endeavor, did they think it was going to be something great? Because it was a made-for-TV movie out of the gate. There was no theatrical run for it. So I don't really understand what's going on there. It's inspired by Cinderella. There's an old lady who's like a fairy. She's like a tourist. She's running around Berlin or Paris. I don't know.
It's Paris.
Oh, it's Paris. Okay, running around Paris. And Rob Lowe plays this fashion designer, and Jennifer Grey is one of his lowly assistants, and she has higher aspirations, and he doesn't even know her name. every time they interact, he's like, sorry, who are you again? You know, that kind of dynamic. And this fairy lady is like a tourist. Nobody will help her. Jennifer Grey gives her directions to somewhere, and that's nice enough for her to basically cast a spell to make Jennifer Grey, like in early 90s aesthetic, more attractive, and she catches the eye of Rob Lowe, and then the film ensues, and there's some stuff that happens. You know, watch for yourself. It's on Amazon Prime. It's 90 minutes you won't get back, but also it's kind of an interesting movie. And that is it. That's everything about the film, Mike.
It's made for TV.
That might be the worst context ever.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but that's fine. It kind of just goes to show how unremarkable the film is. That
it didn't make a splash either way.
That's too bad. But also, yeah, I didn't find it very fun to watch.
No, it wasn't fun. I didn't enjoy it at all.
And Jennifer Grey looked just as good when she was in Cinderella mode versus when she wasn't in Cinderella mode. Like she was just kind of wearing like baggy clothes. And then she was wearing a dress, but the dress wasn't even that nice. And then she just had her hair pulled back.
Yeah, like really tight. I found her,
and she did a duck face.
Yeah, exactly. She did like that early 90s model look, but I did not find that attractive at all. I was like, I don't know. She's a lot cuter in like her design clothes.
Yeah.
When she's just like working, you know?
She wasn't smizing enough.
No. Well said, Mike. Well said.
Thank you. Okay, well, I can talk about the Wes Anderson movie.
Yeah, there's endless stuff to talk about here.
So many things. There is a companion book, actually, for this movie.
Similar to Ghoulies.
Similar to Ghoulies 3, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I didn't have access to it. So I would have loved to have looked at it in preparation for the episode, but I didn't. Instead, I went on something which arguably contains infinitely more information, potentially, the internet.
Oh, I was wondering where you're going with that.
The Grand Budapest Hotel came out in 2014, directed by Wes Anderson. It was filmed in Germany over 10 weeks. Kind of takes place in fake countries that don't really exist. It was funded by the government of Germany, one of their rebate programs, not unlike old Huey Bowl, and also the production company Indian Paintbrush. It's based on a book called Beware of Pity by Stefan Zweig.
Yeah.
And it features a lot of handcrafted props and sets and stuff by designers Annie Atkins, Anna Pinnock, and Adam Stockhausen, who are, pretty much responsible for Wes Anderson's look in his movies. The hotel itself was an old department store in Germany, which is kind of fascinating. Lots of miniatures were used in the film. The hotel itself, a lot of the exteriors were miniatures, which is cool. Some of them are very obviously miniatures. Like when they're skiing, you can really tell it's like little toys pretty much. Even the trains that they were on, there was never a real train used. Some of the trains were actually made out of cardboard. Yeah,
it's just dolly track. The behind the scenes is really cool on that.
It's neat.
Like it's so cheap. It's great.
Yeah. One of the fascinating parts about the movie is that it uses 3 aspect ratios as framing devices to streamline the story of the film. And each of the aspect ratios kind of like gives a sense of the different periods that the movie takes place over. It's mainly shot in the Academy ratio 1.37 to 1. Those are for the scenes set in 1932. Oh, yeah, the modern scenes were 1.85 to 1, and the 1968 scenes were captured in 2.40 to 1 ratio. So for aspect ratio heads out there, this movie is a dream film to watch. If you love having the frame aspect of the movie ratios be different sizes throughout a film, this is the movie to watch. Yeah, so it's like a square sometimes it's really wide, sometimes there's a lot of headroom. Pretty fun.
Yes.
And the movie was a surprise box office success. It cost $25 million to make, made $50 million. And that's pretty good. There's lots to say about the movie, but I will stop there.
It's tricky because a movie like this, you could just spend an hour talking about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's cool how
Like,
it was made.
Isn't the cast interesting? This is how it was made. Yeah, it could go on forever.
Yeah.
Similarly to If the Shoe Fits, I could have kept going, but I withheld.
Well, so far, all we've really talked about is, boy, Jennifer Grey and Rob Lowe are good looking.
Yeah. Well, they are. They are, Mike. They're both very handsome people.
I love the Grand Budapest Hotel. It's good.
Yeah, so I've seen it like 6 times since it's come out, and this last viewing was my favorite. It really, like the ending I found to be really touching. The first few times I watched it, I was like, this is very Wes Anderson-y and like feels a bit dry emotionally, you know what I mean? A bit cold, but this one I was like, I'm moved. I'm moved by the ending. I think it's quite touching.
Is this the best Wes Anderson movie?
I think so. I think it's his most quintessential. Like, I feel like this is the most him he could be.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there was very little compromise in terms of what he wanted to achieve and what he got. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah. I would say his most classic movie is Royal Tenenbaums.
Yeah.
It's like the perfect Wes Anderson movie in a lot of way.
Yeah.
But this movie, I would say, is probably his best movie in terms of just, what you said about it kind of being quintessential.
I think it's more watchable than the Royal Tenenbaums. I know there's a lot of people who love that movie, but I just think Grand Budapest is more fun.
Yeah. It's also interesting because I'm trying to remember what came out. What was the movie he made before this? Moonrise Kingdom.
Oh, yes. Yeah. That's right.
But,
That's a great movie, too.
So I think this is the first movie he did where he doesn't have like a rock and roll soundtrack throughout it or peppered throughout it,
Yeah.
This one is all...
There's less needle dropping.
Yeah, this one's all just score, which I think worked out for it. I think it made the movie better. Was there needle drops in this movie? I don't even remember if there was.
I don't think so. I think it was all Desplat music.
Yeah.
Did I say that right? I doubt it. Alexander Desplat.
Yeah, I just call him Desplat. Alexander Desplat.
Wow, we're so smart and well-read, aren't we, Mike? He was nominated for this, wasn't he?
I believe he was.
Yeah. And this film was nominated for several Oscars, including Best Cinematography. Robert Yeoman, who has shot all of Wes Anderson's films. I think this was his first nomination for a Wes Anderson movie, which is pretty cool. And like visually stunning movie.
It's the most Wes Anderson-y in terms of aesthetics. And for people who criticize him, this is going to maybe be the movie that annoys them the most. I think that this should convince people, this movie, because it's done so well.
Mm-hmm.
But I think
some people just gotta hate, though.
Yeah, I think people think it's twee, and that's as far as it goes.
Okay, let's compare these movies.
Both movies are based on books.
Yeah.
So Beware Pity by Stefan Zweig, and Cinderella by whoever the hell wrote Cinderella. Well, who wrote Cinderella even?
I don't know.
Yeah, nobody knows. There's no way to find out.
You're right. There is no way to find out.
That's all that one is. They're both based on something else.
Good.
It's like it's that simple.
Well, this is kind of a related comparison. Both have like fantasy within their aesthetic and within the universe of their film. Like there's obvious fantasy elements in If the Shoe Fits with the whole Cinderella inspiration and the sort of fairy godmother aspect of the film. And then in Grand Budapest, there are moments that are like quite fantastical, like the ski chase. They use imagery that isn't realistic at all, and it doesn't matter because you're just kind of into it. And the symmetry is, I would argue, even sort of fantastical. You know what I mean? Well, everything's so orchestrated.
I would take what you say and alter it a little bit and say that the Wes Anderson, his aesthetics are like kind of storybook aesthetics.
Yeah.
Often in his movies, they will literally have a book with the title of the film on it,
which is the case in the Grand Budapest Hotel.
Is there? I don't remember.
Doesn't the girl in the beginning going to the statue of the author? Isn't it called the Grand Budapest Hotel?
You're right. Yeah. And like the Fantastic Mr. Fox, I think there's a Royal Tenenbaums. Hmm.
Moonrise Kingdom, I think. There's a journal, isn't there?
Probably, yeah. So, but
And then Rushmore is a school.
Yeah. But the storybook aesthetics thing I think is important because they are like the way that the framing happens in the movie sometimes is akin to how someone would illustrate a book. The way that humans are standing sideways, or like they'll like walk into the shot in the car is perfectly like framed sideways, you know? So it's like, that's how someone would draw something. It's kind of a storybook aesthetic. So both movies, are storybook based, I guess.
Yeah, 100%.
And the colors, the color palettes, I guess, of Wes Anderson really plays on that.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the if the shoe fits. There's no color palette there. It's kind of a muddy, made for TV, like diarrhea kind of. That's
one point where the two films are sort of polar opposites. They're the antithesis of one another is the attention given to aesthetic.
Yeah.
The aesthetic of If the Shoe Fits is horrendous and ill-conceived and inconsistent.
Yeah, just an ugly film.
Yeah. Even though it's about fashion, kind of ironic, don't you think?
It's a stepsister of a film, you know what I'm saying?
Ooh,
in the Cinderella universe.
Nice. Yeah. In the Cinderella verse?
Yeah, Cinderella verse. The MCU.
Cinderella exploitation.
Yeah.
Okay, what's your next comparison?
Like the storybook aesthetic kind of works in Wes Anderson movies because it's kind of an insular world, I guess, where everything has its own rules, color wise. And there's like a certain innocence to everything in all of his movies, and that is kind of always offset by the harshness of reality.
Yeah.
Because everything kind of has like a playfulness and like a lightness and a upbeatness to it. But then there's always dark things happening. And I think that is similar to If the Shoe Fits in a way, in that there's kind of like this storybook world, but character is kind of coming up against the harshness of reality. In this case, the drab color palette of the film. Just how... Once again, how harsh it looks. But I also
Can you call it a color palette if there was no thought put into it? Can you just fall ass backwards into a color palette?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, this movie probably would have looked fine, like lowercase f fine, on like a CRT TV in 1991. And
that's what I watched it on, Mike.
Oh, okay, well, there you go.
And it was bad.
Yeah. I mean, I guess both movies were filmed on film also.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Similar medium. Yeah.
But, another thing I was going to talk about was the contrast of formality and dignification that I think is like always present in Wes Anderson films. Like, I think a lot of the comedy comes from characters being kind of dignified.
Yeah.
Or just the way every character holds himself, but they're always put into situations or forced to act in ways that kind of offset how dignified they're kind of trying to be all the time. And the story of Cinderella is, the harshness of reality coming up against dignification. Like that's kind of the theme. So there's a real deep dive on the shoe fits. If the shoe fits, if there's ever been one, and it's just this is the only one that exists.
I wonder if we're the only podcast that's ever talked about this movie.
Oh,
probably not.
I'm 100% certain we are. Unless there's some sort of fairy tale podcast or Jennifer Grey based podcast or Rob Lowe cast.
I mean, all of those could exist.
Rob cast.
No, it would be called Low Points.
Yeah, Low Points. Good.
Yeah. And then the Jennifer Grey podcast would be called In the Gray or something,
Yeah, nice.
Or like it's a gray area,
gray areas.
Those last names are very easy to work with.
Yeah. Gray and low. Feeling gray and low.
I wonder if they got along on the movie. We'll never know.
Also, like, do we care?
I do.
Okay, well, then there you
go. Okay, so both films take place in Europe, but have a primarily American cast.
Yes, good.
Obviously, Rafe, the two leads are not American Or maybe the guy who plays Zero is American. I don't know. But the whole, like, the cast is very international in Grand Budapest. But then you have, like, Bill Murray, Owen Wilson, Jason Schwartz. The background's just, like, riddled with American A-listers. And this film, if the shoe fits, all the lead characters are American. And then the Europeans are kind of peppered out throughout the background. So there's a real international sort of cast going on in a European setting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. They are both European set films set in like big castle-y buildings with like old-timey architecture.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I'm going to cross that off the list there, Mike. Nice. And that's the end of my list. Just
nice,
kidding. I have more.
Both films are about like art collection in a way, if you consider fashion to be art.
It is, yeah.
Because in the Grand Budapest Hotel, they're looking for that painting, Boy Holding Apple.
Boy with Apple.
Boy with Apple, right, sorry. And then,
I love the painting that he puts up to replace Boy with Apple, and it's just that super raunchy painting. I love that shit. So funny.
It's about art and fashion. That's all that one is.
Nice.
And also kind of revolves around searching for a special piece of art, that being a shoe or a painting.
Nice.
So the shoe at the center of If the Shoe Fits, the titular shoe, the eponymous shoe, and then the painting in Grand Budapest Hotel.
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
The painting in the Grand Budapest Hotel.
Just one more time, Mike. That would be great. I just don't know what the movie's called.
The painting in the Grand Budapest Hotel.
Okay. Interesting.
I just want to add one more thing.
Oh, yeah.
Like, both films are about finding an image. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're literally looking for a image, like a picture in the Grand Budapest Hotel.
Yeah.
And in the If the Shoe Fits, what's his face? Salvatore. Is like, I can't find a new image for the House of Salvatore. That's literally what he's looking for, which is not an actual image. So not literally what he's looking for. I mean, he's literally looking for it, but he's not looking for a literal image. You know what I mean? So he's looking for the image, which basically just means who's the pretty girl.
But all of the models he uses are photographed, which are literal images.
Yes. So, okay.
So I would say there are literal images that he is looking for.
Okay, well, there you go. Out. And then they're the exact same film.
They're pretty much identical.
Yeah, except one is interminable. One of them is an interminable 90 minutes, whereas the other one is
100.
Is 100 minutes, and it flew by.
Yeah, it feels like you're taking a bullet train to Good Times town. Yeah,
a cardboard train also.
Yeah, being pushed by some grips.
Does our podcast I think that the theme, or what we're really getting to with the comparing a bad movie to a good movie, if we watch two movies that are the same length, the one feels twice as long as it is, and one feels short and quick and breezy. I think what we're really like trying to get at in our podcast is like, what even is time, man? Like,
what is the perception of time?
Yeah, it's just kind of, we're more exploring deep, universal questions about the nature of time, I think, on this podcast, more than we are talking about, a bad movie and a good movie. You ever think about that?
We dissect, like, is it even worth listing runtimes of films? You know what I mean? Because how you perceive that time is dependent on the quality and the experience of that film.
Yes, I agree. It's interesting because, like when you're editing a film, you're manipulating time. So that's what film is, like it's all about like manipulating time, man. Wow.
Holy shit. Let's end the podcast right now. We figured it out. Holy shit. Both films deal with like being regal and horny. So
nice.
You have Gustav H. He's a real horn dog. He's very regal and respected.
Yes.
But he sleeps with a lot of his clientele. He's a very horny man. He loves drinking and partying at the same time and being a socialite. But at the same time, he is very clean. He understands his position in society. He appreciates the finer things. And I would say the same for If the Shoe Fits. Rob Lowe and Jennifer Grey are like become horny for one another, but Salvatore also has to like maintain his exterior persona of this sort of fashion designer tycoon who's too good to talk to most people. But then, alone in a room with Jennifer Grey, he, for lack of a better term, gets horny. And so does she. So, both films. And then when she's the model, she's like sort of giving him the cold shoulder, and the power dynamics change a little bit, So both films deal with that sort of the tension and the duality between regality and horniness.
The duality of man, really.
Yeah, just like, hey, Mike, how you feeling? And you're like, oh, I'm feeling regal and horny.
Yeah.
It's a classic duality.
I was going to say both films are about a charming, handsome leading man who has like a deep well of sadness also.
Yes, and are in charge of large groups of people.
Yeah, in a old-timey building.
Yes, nice. Well, we both had that on our list then.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
nice.
So yeah, there's something about the regality. There's something about the horniness. Something about being handsome and sad.
Yeah,
why all those things?
It's like, hey, Mike, how you feeling? And you're like, oh, regal, horny, old timey, and sad,
and handsome,
and handsome. Yes. Yeah. It's like, oh man, I'm sorry to hear that. I guess I don't know. Yeah. I don't know how to dissect those feelings, but good luck with that.
Been there.
Oh, we all have. That's an average day for me. I roll out of bed and I'm like, yep, today's a regal, horny, old timey, handsome,
sad,
something or other, sad kind of day,
And also to the canines at home, if you're feeling regal, charming. Wait, sorry.
Horny.
If you're feeling
so
regal,
horny,
handsome, old-timey, and sad, then reach out to us. Send us an email. You don't need to be alone in this.
We reply to every email specifically with that in the subject line.
Yeah, make sure that you put regal, horny, handsome, old-timey,
/regal, horny, old-timey, handsome, sad.
The subreddit?
Yeah. Wasn't /regarding? That's like what it stands for, right?
I thought it just stood for Reddit.
Oh, maybe. I don't know. Oh, maybe it's R semicolon. It doesn't matter. We don't need to get into the semantics.
Regarding is re ... like re :
Oh, yes. Never mind.
But so that was.
What do
I
know?
Both films are about a young upstart who needs to earn respect in the industry that they work in from the handsome, sad, horny, regal, old-timey guy. And both main characters are zeros at the beginning of the film.
Yeah.
In Grand Budapest Hotel, quite literally, his name is Zero.
Mm-hmm.
And then if the shoe fits, she just feels like a zero. You know what I mean?
And then as the films unfold, they become profoundly successful.
Yeah. She goes from zero to hero, not unlike The Mask.
Yes. That's a good one.
And then I suppose he also goes from zero to hero, but he also goes from zero to also zero because his name is always Zero.
Yeah. He did a great job.
Yeah.
He's great in that movie. That movie would have been very fun to work on, I think.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think it would have been. Supposedly, he and I don't remember the name of the actor, but he and the guy who played the old version of him kind of like hung out a lot.
Oh, really?
Just to like kind of get to know each other and so that they could play the same character, I guess, so they could figure out who they were in relation to each other and how they would play each other or play themselves against the other version of the other person.
Yeah.
Wild stuff.
That's really cool. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Both films sort of display and expose societal hierarchy and sort of display that, within a business or within society, there's a very much a hierarchy and differing levels of respect. Even sort of anecdotally, like the tourist fairy godmother character doesn't get any respect from any of the locals in Paris.
No.
And Zero is literally the bottom of the ladder within his field. And he is within the country, too, because he's just emigrated from wherever he came from, and he's like a low position where he works, and he's a low position within that society. And then when the war occurs, his position is even lower.
Yeah.
So yeah, both films kind of tackle that kind of thing, and they both, I guess, have like a fish out of water in a way, because Zero's not from where he works, and neither is Jennifer Grey.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, if the shoe fits, what I find interesting about this kind of, I mean, this is a whole topic we could talk about.
Uh-huh.
I always find it interesting, like the Cinderella story. It doesn't ever seem critical of anything. And in this movie, I don't think it was really critical of anything. Like,
no, it didn't criticize the system.
Yeah, because she's a part of the system. You know, you feel that she's downtrodden, but because she wears the special shoe and becomes beautiful, then she has value. So that's automatically like a strike against it, re-feminism. But then also like
r/feminism.
Yeah. but yeah, it almost is like she's championed because of that. So she is great because she puts on a special shoe and becomes beautiful, and then everybody sees her value. And the Cinderella story never really like questions that.
Yeah. All it really condones is like, oh, the system's not wrong. You are.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what Cinderella says.
Yeah, fix yourself.
Yeah. Just play the game.
Yeah, play the game.
The game's not rigged.
Yeah, because in like a normal setting, in a normal Cinderella story, it's royalty. It's not just some weird fashion designer guy who's eccentric and rich, and who just wants to sleep with everybody. But it is, it's like royalty, which is, that's kind of effed up. Just being like, we got to look up to I have to get this royal person to fall in love with me. Yeah,
absolutely. It's a weird thing.
And if anybody's been watching The Crown, the last season of it, we all know, how that turns out. That you don't want to try and get a royal guy to marry you, because he ends up being a real like big-eared clown. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I haven't seen the season yet, though. Is it good?
I haven't seen it either. I lived through it though in the 90s, man.
That's true. I guess you lived through it in real time.
Yeah, exactly. Where were you when Princess Diana died?
Not alive?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, okay,
that's the right
cool.
answer.
Yeah, what year was that?
97.
97. Oh, well, what month? Because I was born in August.
The summer month? August, I assume? I can't remember.
I was born in August, so shit.
Oh, there you go. You were a baby.
Yeah, maybe I'm her reincarnate.
You were developing the ability to see, I think, is what you were doing. Like you were you were basically slowly getting the ability to see more than like a foot away from you. Yeah. So that's where you were.
And now I can, so that's great.
Hey, way to go.
Yeah. Both of these movies have scenarios where a character is pretending to be somebody else to infiltrate. So Jennifer Grey pretends to be Jennifer Grey with slicked hair, and Zero and Gustav H. and Zero's girlfriend, played by Saoirse Ronan, whose character name I can't remember.
Agatha,
yeah. They all I guess Agatha is literally a Mendel's employee, but the other two pretend to be so that they can sneak into the Grand Budapest to grab Boy with Apple. And then there's shenanigans that follow. So there's that classic plot point of we'll pretend to be somebody else, we'll infiltrate this place, it'll go off without a hitch, and then it doesn't.
Yeah.
And both films have that. So, Jennifer Grey obviously is both the model and Jennifer Grey. And in Grand Budapest, you have them pretending to be Mendel's employees, and then there's a whole shootout and a very funny scene. So, yeah.
Both films feature tasty baked goods.
Oh, shit.
In that the Grand Budapest Hotel, they have Mendel's and they have those really tasty looking baked goods. If the shoe fits, you don't really see any baked goods in the movie, but you know that they're having macarons because they're in Paris.
Oh, yeah. They're having macarons. They're having croissants, baguette.
Yeah, it's very subtext baked goods.
It's between the lines. the baked goods.
Yeah, you know
really
that they just ate a croissant in that scene, even though you didn't see them eat it.
And I'll bet craft services on that movie was riddled with baking.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just the bakeries who they have too many croissants, and they're just like, yeah, take a these, please. I cannot eat them. And then they're like, ooh, croissants, fancy. And it's like, they are a week old.
Yeah. That's right, Mike. Yeah.
Both films feature characters with cartoonish beehive hairdos. They're Tilda Swinton's character and then the fairy godmother.
Right.
On that same note, like the fairy godmother is kind of like a deus ex machina for the movie. She kind of just comes in and uses literal magic to change reality to the benefit of Cinderella, including like putting magic on her shoe and making it so the shoe is, I guess, charming to people, or makes the lights go out, and then she turns into Cinderella with her hair.
I love that all they did was flick lights.
Yeah,
3 times. Like that was such a cheap fucking transition.
At first, I thought there's something wrong with the movie. Because I was like, why is
like the power's cutting out?
Well, why is it cutting? Why is it like strobing black? They should have used some sort of like at least add a harp sound or something, so we knew it was magic.
There's that one scene where it happens like 6 times though.
Yeah.
So obviously there's just like a guy on a dimmer board, his finger's ready, and then he reads the script. There's a cue. He starts flicking the dimmers, and he has to do it like 6 separate times.
Yeah.
It's cheap. It's a cheap way to get it done.
And I mean, I guess it works. But
I was just gonna say, like, we know what's going on. Like, it works.
We know what's going on.
It's just not like clever by any means.
No. And in Grand Budapest Hotel, the Deus Ex Machina, I guess you could say, is the concierge company that he like calls. To, like, help them out.
Absolutely.
So with and that's where all the cameos come in.
Yeah, you got
Bill Murray,
all the sweet cameos. Bob Balaban.
Was Owen Wilson in it?
He was. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I wrote this down, and maybe we can like explore this idea, but both films kind of feel like an expat expose of European fantasy. So they kind of tackle different parts of like Europe and European society in different time periods, but both are lensed with like a non-European voice.
Yes.
They both feel very non-European. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Similar to like how Wim Wenders could make Paris, Texas, and it was like obviously a European look at rural Texas and rural America. Both these films feel like a very North American perspective and fantasy, an idea of like what Europe is like. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And obviously Wes Anderson achieves it to a better degree and has a more sort of fleshed out idea. Whereas if the shoe fits, you can tell they just like filmed in random places, and like some of it looks European, some of it's modern, some of it's old, and it's just like a real smorgasbord of shit. But,
well, they both do kind of capture the essence of Europe. Like the Grand Budapest Hotel captures kind of like the whimsy and the like kind of beauty of the architecture and the landscapes, whereas if the shoe fits, captures the drab filth of Paris that I think a lot of people like don't romanticize, but it's always there.
Yeah, it's like what you don't see or what you don't think you'll see, and then you like go to somewhere like London and you're just like, ugh. Yeah. You know? Or any major city and you're like, man, there's poo everywhere. Why is there poo on the sidewalk? What's going on? Yeah. I gotta get an app to figure out where all the poo is now.
Yeah, my memory of Paris was going and getting baguettes on the street, like from carts. Almost like if you were in New York and you would get peanut cart, go to a peanut cart. But then also pornography stores everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Like right outside of our hotel was a pornography store.
Right. And you frequented it?
No, I was in high school.
Because you're feeling regal and horny?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, right. Yes.
I was so regal and horny. Thank God there's a porno store beside my hotel. Yeah, you were there as a kid?
Yeah, I was there in high school.
I mean, that's not a bad age.
No, it was fun.
Buying porn. Who knows, you know?
Who knows? I guess so, yeah.
Who knows?
Do you have any more comparisons? I ran out.
I have one more. So both films are inspired, like impressionistically inspired by something. Mm-hmm. If the Shoe Fits is inspired by Cinderella, it doesn't follow the plot points of Cinderella very closely. It loses most of the characters and the overall shape of the story isn't there, but it's just enough that you can tell it's Cinderella. And similarly, the Grand Budapest Hotel, you can tell that World War II and the Nazi regime and the history of Germany is sort of, it inspires and sort of colors the events, historical events in quotes, that occur in that film, but nothing is actually historically accurate.
Right.
So names are changed, symbols are changed, but it's just enough that you're like, these are obviously Nazis. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're Nazis. This is obviously Germany, or like one of the neighboring countries that was taken over very early in the war in the late 30s, you know? So yeah, both films just feel like, you know, impressionistically inspired by source material without being literal.
Nice.
Yeah, I saved my good one for the end.
Yeah, so like, what are your thoughts on Wes Anderson as a film director? I know he gets a lot of slack. Sorry, I know he gets slagged a lot for...
You mean flack?
He gets flack, that's what I meant to say.
Yeah, slag. Yeah, what the fuck is that?
I got some crazy buttermouth tonight.
That's okay. Well, you've been eating butter all night.
I have been eating butter, yeah. So yeah, he gets a lot of flack for kind of being twee or for being overly relying on his like design. But I do think he is kind of one of the best, if not the best, like comedy film directors working today. Because I think his films are they're shot interestingly.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not just two characters talking to each other and saying, "You look like Colonel Sanders," and then the other one being dressed like Colonel Sanders, and that's the joke. It's like
his approach is so opposite to that of Judd Apatow.
Yeah.
And it's very refreshing. He you know, like his style's more like Jacques Tati, you know? And sort of like the framing is deliberate, the bits are cinematic and take their time, and you can tell that the script was written with jokes, whereas I feel like, I don't know why I keep, you know, just ripping on Judd Apatow, but he started an epidemic of, you know, boring comedies.
Kind of,
dare I say. And, you know, instead of just like two-shotting everything, there's like very thoughtful bits peppered into the film. And the cinematography is fused so well with the comedic timing.
Exactly, yeah. It's like shot funny. It's edited funny, acted funny.
Yeah, exactly. And
then it also has
and then it's also
pathos.
Sad.
Yeah, okay, yeah, you said it. You said it. It's also sad.
No, you said it better.
Well, I think I mispronounced it. I think it's pathos.
It is pathos, yeah.
So I
like that
you,
when you say pathos, I just say sad.
No, that's
one of us has a degree.
But I mispronounced it. So what does that say about me? The way that things are blocked also, like the characters pop into frame a lot, and that's really funny always to see. Like that's just a funny way to like have characters be revealed. Or the whip pans is always, they reveal information just through whip pans. So it's a lot of the time you'll get like somebody saying something and then I'll just whip pan. We're revealing something that way, and it's
nice because the camera work, like the operating and the framing, will either be the punctuation within a joke, or it'll be the reversal of expectations or the punchline. Like the camera does work. It's not just capturing a comedian being funny. It's part of the equation to achieve the moment of funny.
Yeah.
And that is so rare nowadays. Like you really don't see that. Like it's just not, you know, Paul Feig isn't doing it. Apatow isn't doing it. Who else can I just throw under the bus on this podcast?
I'm trying to think of other comedy film directors. I guess Todd, the guy who did The Hangover.
Todd Phillips.
And, you know, I guess he did the titular Joker, but...
Yeah. Filled with pathos. My God.
That's a movie with so much pathos. But also on the Wes Anderson comedy thing, like the characters, I think everything that they say is from their characters. Their characters are so well drawn, so specific. Everything that they say and do is like coming from the character. It's not like they just, something dumb happens and then, you know, Gwyneth Paltrow and the Royal Tenenbaums is like, well, that happened, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
You don't see that happening. Yeah. Everything kind of comes from the character or the character's relationships. And then also they get a lot of comedy from a character who's like really high strung or a certain way kind of breaking their own character. Like they can't even they have a moment where they break because everybody has to be regal or has to be refined or whatever.
I think the thesis of the Grand Budapest Hotel is it takes a lot of work to maintain this sort of regal, pompous, societal performance. Like it takes so much work. Like and that's illustrated through Gustav H. Like in the scene after the first encounter with the army squad that interrogates the two of them in the train. Yeah. And then they walk out because Edward Norton, knew him as a boy or whatever. And then you see Gustav H. He does that short monologue and he's talking about how there's still faith in humanity and, there's still respect and da-da-da. And then he ends it with, oh, fuck it. Yeah, and then he just drinks champagne and gets drunk. Yeah. There's that. And then also like juxtaposed Gustav H. versus Adrian Brody's character. Mm-hmm. They're so opposite. They're both high class characters, but Adrian Brody is just like very like base. You know what I mean? He uses profanity. He's very rude. He doesn't hold back. He says a lot of like very socially unacceptable things to other characters in the movie. And that's kind of interesting. And then sort of visually, the like essay of the film is the decay of the hotel over the subsequent decades. Like without Gustav H. and without society putting in that work, a hotel like that can't maintain itself. It's unsustainable. Yeah. And you see it decay. And then when Jude Law is there, and something Abramson, the guy who plays Zero as an old man, you see it. You even see it in like Jason Schwartzman's character. Yeah. He is a concierge and he's an idiot. He's unhelpful. He's nosy. He's neurotic. He's inconsistent. And that sort of like, he's an example of what it's turned into. And that's because it took so much work. Yeah. There's so much discipline. And I really think the film is like, all this discipline is so unsustainable. Yeah. And maybe, maybe it all died with Tilda Swinton's character. Maybe it did. Even Gustav H.'s character goes from this regal, well-respected man to imprisoned murderer who like kicks the shit out of people and commits crimes and is on the run from the law, But it's all like an evolution of his character, and everything makes sense and feels like it. Like the story all comes from the character, and then all of the jokes come from the character. And as the character evolves, the way that he acts and the things that he says, like work for the comedy, I guess is kind of what I was getting at. Yeah. So yeah. It's like everybody should just study Wes Anderson movies if they're wanting to make film comedies, because like they're shot funny, they're acted funny, they're written character driven. It's great. There isn't a single riff. No, there's not a single riff. There's never just like, you look like Colonel Sanders, which you love that example. Well, the movie that's from is actually The Waterboy. Oh, with Adam Sandler. That's like early mid 90s. So that's not even like a recent example, but also I guess Adam Sandler movies are kind of lazy American comedies too. Except for 50 First Dates, because that's a great rom-com. Sure. No one disagrees. But If the Shoe Fits, is that even a comedy? I got the feeling that it was supposed to be funny, but I didn't laugh, obviously. And then the fairy godmother, she seemed to be like a kind of a cartoonish character in the same way that Tilda Swinton's character was cartoonish, but she wasn't funny. It was just kind of like, isn't this lady weird? That's the joke. I think Rob Lowe was supposed to be funny, and the fairy godmother was supposed to be funny. The film, the tone is with great levity, but nothing funny happens. Yeah. And there are no moments where you're like, oh, how happy. Like, everyone's so happy in this film. What a great time. Everyone's bizarrely miserable, even though nothing bad really happens. Yeah. It's a really bizarre exercise in filmmaking. But everybody in the Grand Budapest Hotel is miserable in their own way, or there's like a sadness, a pathos, if you will, to everybody. But it works, and it's that sadness that makes things funny. Like when we find out how sad Gustav H is, like that's funny
because it goes against everything we knew about him before, but we also think it fits with the character and it makes the character more three-dimensional. And it kind of comes to define that character as the movie goes on, as he starts shedding the layers of his kind of refinedness.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't happen in If the Shoe Fits because the characters are just so one-dimensional.
Well, it's funny, like none of the characters change, but like Rob Lowe's character does change because he trades his professional endeavor to be with Jennifer Grey, but it feels out of nowhere and it doesn't really apply to what is going on. Like it just seems so out of place, you know?
Yeah. Well,
whereas, the Grand Budapest pulls it off so well. Like you see, like you said, sort of the film whittles away Gustav H's refinement. And then, his exterior performance is so different to that of how lonely he is. But the film tells you he's lonely in the first 5 minutes during that monologue when talking to Jude Law, Zero describes his daily routine and how he eats alone in his quarters, his servants' quarters. And like, you see him alone in like his briefs and shit. And he's just eating soup. And you're like, yeah, like that dude is alone. He's a lonely man.
I swear that took place later in the film, but actually it was off the top.
The opening monologue. Yeah. He talks about like they hint to his loneliness, but then you see him be like vain and popular and bossy and a powerhouse human being. And then that all kind of changes as the film unfolds. I love this movie. It's really growing on me. I kind of want to watch it again before Christmas.
I mean, it's a good holiday movie also because it's festive in a way, because it's colorful, I guess.
Well, it takes place in the winter.
There you go. I also wanted to just talk about in If the Shoe Fits, like who is this movie for, you know?
It's for whomever had a cable. So here's the thing, Mike. I was on IMDb looking at this movie, and there was one review. It was a 7 out of 10, and the review said, and I quote, a non-stressful, very fun movie to kill time.
Okay.
There are people who want that. There's nothing stressful about If the Shoe Fits. Like the Grand Budapest Hotel is stressful. Way more stressful. You have murder. You got Willem Dafoe walking around chopping fingers off and shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then in If the Shoe Fits, everything bad that happens is inconsequential. So that's who it's for. It's for folks who, like Hallmark, nothing bad actually happens in a Hallmark film.
I guess I just don't understand adapting fairy tales for adults.
Well, Kenneth Branagh did it with like his Cinderella movie was like 4 kids, but I saw a lot of adults.
What movie was this?
This came out I saw it in high school. It came out in 2014, I want to say, 2014, 2015.
It's called, it's a Cinderella
It's called
movie?
Cinderella. Yeah. Kenneth Branagh directed it.
Oh, but yeah, I know. Oh, sorry. Like the Disney remake.
Yeah, the live
cartoon.
action.
No, I'm not talking about that because Disney is a whole other thing where they are here's some copyright free properties that we can exploit into forever. And in fact, copyright ourselves somehow.
Yeah.
Insane. No, I'm talking about like movies that like this, where it's like we're taking a fairy tale that everybody knows and just putting a spin on it, and it's for adults. Yeah. Most likely, like who? Yeah, that's why I guess I'm asking, like, who is this for? Why is this interesting to anybody? I guess it is just exactly what you said. It's people who don't want to think about anything and just want to turn their brain off.
Well, don't you think? Like, I could see adults wanting, like a contemporary, darker film to also be blatantly a fairy tale.
Why?
Well, I mean, like even like Hansel and Gretel with Jeremy Renner. People like that. It's like, we'll just make it an action movie.
Yeah, but that's different though, because that's a spin. That's like a twist. This is just a fairy tale.
Is this not a twist?
This is not enough of a twist.
If the Shoe Fits feels like a twist, it feels like an attempted twist because it's dealing with the fashion world. It's dealing with like modern Europe for 1990. And then it peppers in this like fantasy shit, but it feels like an attempt to like twist. Because, like, you could argue, too, that, like, Jennifer Grey is, like, a young professional, whereas Cinderella was, like, scrubbing, I don't know, hardwood floors and sinks and shit or whatever.
Yeah.
And charcoal. So it feels like a contemporary, slightly more sort of modern story with a twist, and it's achieved poorly.
Yeah, well, I guess that's what my problem is that it seems like, I mean, it's obviously lazy, but
yes,
it seems to like misunderstand as you were just saying, like it misunderstands the Cinderella story itself, because yeah, sure, she's not like as low class as the character Cinderella in the story. She still is like a fashion designer who is working in like the industry and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not like she's like a peasant. And I guess she doesn't have to be a peasant necessarily, but it just feels like it's not a twist at all. It doesn't seem to use one story to comment on something else. Like it doesn't comment on the fashion industry beyond stereotypes we're already aware of.
Yeah.
So it's like adding Cinderella onto that actually is bad, because it seems to say this is normal and this is fine. You know, like the ugly stepsisters, they don't really like add anything to the movie, I don't think.
Well, no, and they're not like the example of vanity like they are in the original fairy tale, right?
Yeah. Because
like, yeah, the sisters are privileged and vain in the original story, and the roommates, actually one of them is helpful, if I remember correctly. So yeah, it's everything's very sloppy and lazy, and there are zero stakes, zero character change. It feels like filler 99% of the time. Just like, we got to write a scene in this apartment because we got to kill 10 minutes out of the runtime of this movie. You know what I mean? So I see what you mean, but I do think like there's an audience for it.
Yeah.
I think if it had been pulled off better, 100% could have been something more interesting.
Yeah, I'm sure that there are like takes on the Cinderella story or fairy tales in general. I assume there's got to be an Amanda Bynes movie or some like Hilary Duff movie that kind of took a twist on a classic tale and did it in an interesting, fun way that made some sort of comment on something. And I guess maybe I'm assuming that something has to have some sort of point or make some sort of comment on something rather than just perpetuating the status quo.
Don't have to say anything, man. Some people don't want to be told anything. You know what I mean? They
don't want to think.
Exactly. What does that say about me? Because I'm the one who discovered this movie, and I'm the one who watched it voluntarily before I suggested it for the podcast.
Yeah. I don't know. What does it say about you? I guess that's a question we should be asking.
Yeah. I'll book some more therapy and really try to get into it, and figure it out.
Like, why do I watch movies like If the Shoe Fits? Why do I watch 45 rom-coms over the course of several months?
Yeah. But also, why not?
I mean, yeah, I guess why not? Yeah. Yeah, I guess I assume a film has to be thinking critically about something or asking a question, just any question, literally any question.
Well, that should be why you want to make a movie in the first place, or write a film. Is there's something you want to talk about and explore, and kind of dissect, and you can do that through the medium of film. But because there's all this machinery that's being established and the business of filmmaking, a lot of things get made because they have to fill quotas, airtime, box office slots, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's wild.
And it's during those times that a lot of dog shit gets made.
Truly, yeah.
Like Ghoulies it became a machine, and it's like, we got to keep making Ghoulies. Same with Leprechaun. It's like we have to keep making these because they're making money.
Yeah, and Ghoulies, I mean, it seemed to misunderstand what it was even doing when it made Ghoulies 3.
Yeah.
And then I looked into Ghoulies 4, and they don't even have the original Ghoulies like in the movie as much. They just kind of happen via flashback. Instead, you get these people in like little troll costumes.
Oh God!
So it's like either children or little people.
So the fourth one is a knockoff of what already feels like a knockoff of a horror movie.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny how things can degenerate. Similar to how you can make multiple copies of VHSs and the quality deteriorates every time. It'll degenerate by one. It's like that with these franchises. Sometimes they become distilled down, or rather not distilled, but diluted to this thing that is not even reminiscent of the original film or whatever it is that instigated a franchise. It's super weird.
Well, even to talk about If the Shoe Fits, like there's another movie called If the Shoe Fits, which came out, 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's called A Cinderella Story, If the Shoe Fits. And it features no celebrities as far as I can see.
Yeah.
And it's, as I understand from the Letterboxd reviews, much, much worse than If the Shoe Fits, the bad movie on this episode of the podcast.
Wow. And there's 4 of them.
It combines two already existing Cinderella titles into one. So there's a movie called A Cinderella Story, and there is a movie called If the Shoe Fits. And this movie is called A Cinderella Story, If the Shoe Fits. And I don't think it's connected to either film. It's just,
oh my God.
It's just so lazy in terms of like just being a copy of a copy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of nuts, isn't it?
Yeah, but I guess that's what's going to keep our podcast going, because we're always on the hunt for a new bad movie.
Exactly. What would we be without bad movies, Mike?
We'd be spending the limited time we have on this planet much more productively. I guess that's relative.
That's an interesting way to break it down. Interesting. I wonder.
Well, also, we talked about earlier about how this podcast is really about the perception of time.
Yeah, really, we're physicists.
Yeah, but it's about the value of time as well.
Yeah.
Because we choose to spend our time on a good movie and a bad movie. And each moment is a time dollar, And we're spending it on the same, they has equal value whether you're watching a good movie or a bad movie. That time dollar is gone.
Yeah.
It's pretty sad. Did you get your money's worth for this episode, I guess is the question.
The real question is, I hope all the canines can walk away from this episode feeling regal and horny and old and hot and sad.
Yeah.
If you don't feel that way right now and for the rest of the day in which you listen to this episode, we haven't done our jobs.
Truly.
Yeah. I'm going to be feeling regal, sad, horny, old, and handsome. Old-timey for the foreseeable future.
I feel like you're that combination most of the time.
Yeah, I think every time we chat, you're just like, man, why are you so regal and horny and sad and old-timey?
Well, you are old-timey, though.
I am old-timey for sure.
Because at one point you were a baby named Bob, which will be the name of your autobiography.
A baby named Bob. Yeah, actually, that's a great autobiography. I'll try to get it pretty narcissistic to start writing it in my 20s, but I'm going to go for it.
Yeah. Were you going to say I'm going to get it kickstarted?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, everybody, I want to write an autobiography. Give me money so I can do that, please.
Myself. Ugh. Yeah. Do you have to be interesting to write an autobiography?
According to the book industry, no, based on how many memoirs come out nowadays.
But that's that's when the memoirs come out. It's like, well, I've done everything interesting with my life that I'm going to do within the public eye.
But that's an admission.
Now I should write about it.
That's an admission of, I guess I wouldn't say failure, but basically it's an admission that you're just like, you're done when you write a memoir, because, there's a lot of people who write memoirs in their 20s or 30s because they just happen to be famous.
You're legally obligated to not do anything once a memoir is published.
Really?
No.
Oh, I believed it for a second. Why am I so naive?
I still got it, buddy. I still got it.
Well, that was a good epi, I thought.
Yeah, this was good. Thanks for listening, everyone. I hope you're feeling regal, horny, old-timey, handsome, and sad. And don't eat lobster between bread, especially during the holidays. I'm telling you right now, that is not going to work, okay? If you eat lobster between bread, stop listening to this podcast. Yeah. Remain a subscriber, but stop listening.
Well, on that note, people should subscribe if they haven't already.
Yeah, please do. And I'm talking to you, Mom.
There's no way for us to know if people are subscribed, but do it so that you don't have to type in from Justin to Kane next time you remember that this podcast exists. It'll just always be there on your podcast app. So there you go.
Yeah.
And then set it to auto download. You don't even have to listen to it. Just give us some free downloads.
That's what I do.
Yeah, same. I auto download a bunch of episodes of podcasts. Sometimes I don't even listen to them, but those people, their metrics make it seem like I did.
Yeah, it helps. It helps people.
It helps people in a way.
Like Mike and I.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoyed this episode. And we'll be back soon. Are we whipping out some Christmas business in the next little bit here, Mike?
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so we're gonna get festive for the rest of the month. Methinks, as Jar Jar would say,
festive for the rest of the month.
Yeah. So stay tuned. We're always on our social media platforms. We have email.
Wow, this is.
I believe Mike has a landline as well.
I do. Yeah.
There's that.
Call my landline.
I have a cell phone. If you find the number to it, give me a call.
Give him a call.
And yeah, thanks so much for listening. Any last thoughts there, Mike?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay, well, bye.
Bye.